Here, yeah, in this cottage. I was the last person to be born here in 1958. Yeah, yeah, and my grandfather lived here with his mother and his sister, and my understanding is that he got the cottage because he was, I think it was considered the head porter down in the, or I'd call him the station master, but I don't know what the term is. But anyway, that was his role down in the station in Glenelg now. You know, the old station. So, and that's where he lived and worked until he retired. Yeah, and all of his children were born here. And then, as I say, I was the last child to be born here.
Did Grandad Eugene, did he work on the railway?
My father and his brother Charlie, my grandfather's name was Charlie Davis, and he had a son called Charlie Davis, and my father's name was Eugene Davis. And my dad worked on the railway in the United Kingdom, in London, yeah. And all the Davises are connected with the railway line. Charlie Davis, my grandfather, had a brother in Skibbereen called James Davis, and he was also working on the railway line. So the connections with the railway line are absolutely huge. CIE in those days, Commemorating, or kind of, you know, they were the railway board, were taking up the tracks and so on. They sold these places to the people who lived in them, you know, and at that stage it was my grandfather and my father, so they purchased it. And we bought the railway line, they bought the railway line over as far as the Glebe, and over as far as kind of the Wells, but we've since exchanged some land with somebody up there, so we've acquired this section here, and he has that over there. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so we don't do anything with the railway line now, really. You could set vegetable drills and stuff on it, because like it's really hard ground, you'd have to get proper growing soil, you know. But it's still very much there, yeah. And I often think of all the people who literally passed through our sitting room, you know, because the sitting room is built on the railway. Yeah, you know, all the hundreds and thousands, I suppose, of people who came and went over the years, yeah. Yeah. So, and I don't know, but I suppose we must be one of the most southerly railway cottages, certainly. You know. And somebody told me, I don't know how true it is, but that these houses were built to a Swedish design. Because when we were small, I mean, this was it. This was our home. And there was like a kitchen kind of living area when you came in, 2 downstairs rooms and a loft. And that's why when we developed the place, I said to Sharon, I wanted a loft here, a mezzanine or a loft or whatever you want to call it. And that's what that is up there. But we used to sleep in the loft, myself and my brother. Yeah. But we were all reared to such a small space, you know, whereas now we've loads of room. It makes you wonder, really. Yeah. But anyway, we managed, it would seem. My understanding is he was the first, him and his mother, my grandfather and his mother were the first people to live here, is my understanding. I don't think anybody lived here before them. And that lady there in that picture, she's Mary Ann Davis. She's Charlie's sister. And yes, of course, and she subsequently went to live in Shirkin and had her family in there. But she married a man called O'Regan in Shirkin, and she had a big family of children there. And in fact, her daughter Alice O'Driscoll in Skull, she only died there last year. She was 91, 92. And that's Mary Ann Davis. And she lived in this house with my grandfather, her brother. capable lady. They were all capable women. And funnily enough, again, I know that she came to this house to have at least one of her children, if not a couple of them. Because, you know, she came out of the island to have the child here. I suppose maybe because maybe she felt a bit safer being off the island or whatever. Because there was a lady from Belfast who would have been her daughter, came to the house one day and said, I was born here. And I said, oh, so was I. Yeah. And she would have been that person, that lady's daughter. Yeah. I certainly remember the sleepers coming up. I can remember that quite distinctly. And I can remember what I call the Nancy car, you know, the person with that, I think it was some sort of a vehicle for fixing the track. I can remember that quite distinctly. I can see somebody actually going past. Railway literally is just out there. And these were the windows. There were the big sash windows of the railway. So you could just literally pull them up and step out. But we put doors there, obviously, when we renovated the cottage in 2006, 7.
7, yeah.
Yeah. But we've also cleared the railway line. It goes all the way over as far as the Glebe, and we'll take a little walk over there. There's some beautiful views, you know, because then it skirts all the way down around the Tulla and just by the sea and heads on into the village and down onto the pier. Well, it used to, doesn't anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I suppose one of the things that I'm fascinated looking back now is we actually used to play on the tracks. I mean, when I think of the way I reared my children, I wouldn't let them near anything like that. But it was our front garden, you know, because I have photographs of myself walking along with my cats and just hopping from one track to another, you know. It was coopering, you know, barrel making and salting of fish. And like my understanding is that the train went right down onto the pier to take the barrels of fish and to take them up to Cork, and they were distributed all over, you know. Baltimore was a fiercely industrious little village in those days.
We were in Kilmallock a couple of weeks ago, actually. Sadly, Nana Peg Connery from Kilmallock, her brother passed away, Mick Connery, and he was telling you, I can't remember now, he was telling you a funny story about the railway.
Because in the olden days, it wasn't like railways now, you know, high-speed trains. And he brought a goat down from County Limerick in the train, from Limerick, actually in the train, I can't believe it. And the driver stopped the train out there and let him and the goat off. So that he wouldn't have to walk the goat back from Baltimore. And that is a true story. They in the olden days, you know, they would stop, a bit like the bus stops, you know, whereas of course now that's not possible. The industrial school in Baltimore, part of our history we'd all like to forget but really shouldn't. Apparently, when the bread van, the bread car, you know, the cart or the railway, what do you call it?
The railway cart.
Bringing the bread from town would come along. This man who was in the industrial school said that my grandfather would kind of conveniently just let it open, and you know, because they were hungry. The children down there were hungry. Yeah, there was plenty of money, but they weren't. The money wasn't spent on them. So that's another aspect of our history. Yes, you know. So, and funnily enough, one of them came to tell us that many years later. Said, you know, that I remember your grandfather just left it open because we were starving and we stole the bread, basically. Well, they didn't steal it, they just took it, which was the right thing to do, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of history in Baltimore, but I can't remember who that person was. I think they were living in England, but they they specifically came here to say it to my dad, you know. Yeah, it is really, when you think about it, you know that after all that time, they remembered that somebody showed them a little bit of kindness, you know. Yeah. Yeah, that was my granddad, yeah. Yeah. Actually, my mother told me once I was born just as the 2 o'clock train came through. I don't know, was that true? I think she was trying to tell me I came on the train, but I'd say that now was a bit of a tall one. God love her. Found trespassing. Will be fined by me? No, not really. No, this was given to me by my second cousin, the son of my grandfather's brother, James Davis, who was also involved with the railway and lived in Skibbereen. Yeah, James Davis. And his son Donny gave it to me when we renovated the house here. And I felt the only place to put it was on the railway line, which was the most fitting place for it to be.
The Metal Bridge. On the River Island's muddy banks, around the railway gate, I shelled the mullet from the bridge with the broken gashouse slate, and climbed to rob a pigeon's nest above the old steam mill, as a jackdaw poked the horse dung and chewed it with his bill. The train is late from Baltimore, the station master grins. The market day a busy time for the chaps that buy the hens. Then the old puff puff she whistles, the guard he shouts out ho ho. The tram will soon be leaving for the place they call Kilcoe. And when the wind of the Curragh Hills and the church bell loudly tolled, past the spacious marsh on for Hilty Bridge, the train it puffed and rolled. The town at last did fade from view, with the hearts of sorrow great. My friends and pals, year by year, did leave and emigrate. But naught is of that railway now, old times will ne'er come back, and the river keeps its secrets, it never answers back. Still the night gives its concessions, on that bridge a while you'll wait, and you'll watch again those phantom hands as they throw the gashouse slate.